Hello, good evening. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to give it another minute or two for folks to come on in before we kick off this evening's session. While we wait to do that, I would love to welcome everyone that's here. We're so thankful that you're joining us here on this Wednesday evening, morning for some of our panelists. We'll be talking a little bit more about what our plans are for the next hour. But before we do that, let me begin by welcoming you all. And if you're wondering, what GradRight is, what this is all about, what we're going to be talking about, I've got some answers to your questions. My name's Priyanka. I look after communications at GradRight. GradRight, in case you are an Indian student thinking about studying abroad, is going to help you do just that. How do we do it? We've got two fantastic and completely free to use platforms to help you do exactly that. Number one, we've got SelectRight. If you're thinking about studying abroad, not quite sure how to make that decision, what program to apply to, what university to apply to, we've got a way to help you do exactly that. SelectRight is an AI-powered recommendation engine based on your personal and professional goals. What we do is help you create a short list of programs that suit your needs based on exactly what it is that you're looking for. So if you're looking for a STEM-based or a management degree, a master's degree specifically in the United States or Canada, what we can do is help you sort of select and finalize which program to apply to. In case you're a little bit further along on your study abroad journey, we've got a way to help you fund your degree too. We understand that a master's abroad can be a huge investment for students from India. So in case you're looking to fund your degree, you can log on to FundRight, figure out a way to get about 15 lenders from India and abroad to bid for your education loan. It's a process that puts you at the center of it all, that gives you the power of choice to sort of look at the different kinds of bids that come in from lenders and decide really what is best for you. So SelectRight and FundRight, we're available everywhere on the internet. You can go ahead and look us up and see which of these two platforms best suit your needs. But if you're here this evening, I think you already have an idea of what it is that you're thinking about. We get a lot of questions that come in from students almost every day on our social media when we're talking to students, sort of wondering, I'm thinking about doing a master's, I'm thinking about doing a master's abroad. I'm either a trained engineer or I'm interested in engineering. I'd like to sort of consider a master's in engineering, but is it really worth it for me as a student from India to go to the US, spend a lot of money in this degree, invest in myself, invest in my education, invest in my future? Is this an investment that's really going to pay off? And those are some of the questions that we're going to try and address over the next hour in this series that we call Hot Topic here on GradRight. It's a series where we bring the hot trending topics in the study abroad space and take them to all the folks that really matter, get their opinions, get their views, so that you as a student can make the most informed decision about where to go for your master's. And if you're considering a master's in engineering, if you're confused about, is an MS in engineering worth it? What about an M engineering? Which degree is better? Is this really a degree that's going to get me the kind of jobs I need to help me pay off my education loans, really sort of move where I need to, in my career? Is this sort of more focused for someone that's interested in research, for instance? Will this really help me get a job in tech? Whatever your questions are, please go ahead and drop them in the Q&A box. As always, it's open. Our aim is to spend the next hour answering any and all of your questions. But who's going to be answering your questions? It's not going to be me. We've got a panel of experts from WPI. The first question I'm going to ask our first panelist, who I can see up on my screen. Good morning, Daniel. Can you tell our students, some of them have asked, how do I really pronounce WPI? Could you tell us?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Priyanka. Hello, everyone. Good morning and good evening. My name is Danny Richer. I'm the Executive Director of Enrollment Strategy at Worcester Polytechnic Institute, also known as WPI. And on behalf of our president, Dr. Grace Wang, the entire administration, faculty, and staff, I want to thank you all for joining us. We're very much looking forward to the conversation on all things related to Worcester Polytechnic Institute.
Worcester, there you go. Who would have ever thought that would be pronounced Worcester? But you learn something new every day. Good morning, Leslie.
Good morning. Hello, everyone. My name is Leslie Rodriguez. Glad to be here. work as an assistant director of enrollment. So I help students as they're thinking about taking a course or even applying into WPI. So I'm here to support and answer any questions that you may have regarding moving forward if WPI is a good fit for you.
Amazing. So Danny and Leslie are going to be answering some questions around application, how to really stand out as an applicant. What is it that makes WPI stand out as, as an institute? Where is it located? Where is Worcester really in the United States? All of those kinds of questions we'll be throwing to Danny and to Leslie. But really in the hot seat this evening is Bashima Islam. She's an assistant professor of electrical and computer engineering at WPI. And we're going to be talking to her about this hot topic. Is a master's in engineering really worth it? Good morning, Bashima.
Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Bashima Islam. I started as an assistant professor at WPI last fall. So I'm also an international student, I'm from Bangladesh, so I'd be happy to share what I've learned at WPI before in my journey as a PhD student.
Amazing. And, those are exactly the kinds of insights that I think some of our GradRight student community is looking to understand what someone's journey as an international student may have been like, what it's like to be at WPI. And of course, is a master's in engineering really worth it? So I'm going to throw it to you, Bashima. You see students day in, day out. Could you tell us a little bit about the kind of student that chooses a master's in engineering? Is it someone that's looking at a research-based career? Is it someone who's, maybe looking for something else? Just overall, in a very broad sense, who is a student that should choose a master's in engineering?
Right. So from my experience, what I see is if someone is looking for more of a research-based position, which is focused on developing new algorithms and ideas or research techniques, these are the students who are more tense towards staying for PhD, because the whole idea of research is you don't know what's going to happen. It's different than what we learn in our undergraduates, bachelors, or in our master's, which is we have an idea of what are the information we need to contain and learn and how to implement them in real world. The research is something that's not there yet. So finding that's not founded, so innovating something. So that requires going through the process of understanding some of the techniques of failure and how to overcome the failure, which are the problem to look into. So what I have seen, most students who want to pursue such career tends to stay for their PhD after the master's. However, for the students who wants to work on implementing what they have learned, who wants to quick start on having real world impact on their learning by developing stuff, if for example, in a computer science that might be, or in some sense in engineering, like computer engineering, it might be developing the algorithm, programming the FPGAs, developing the circuits. Those are the students who get more benefited by a master's degree because they learn a lot of information in their undergraduate, during their bachelor. What a master's tells them is how you take that knowledge and implement it in a way that you require to implement in real world. That gets how to express your value to a team, saying, okay, this is a team. I'm working with a team of 6. This is my role and how I can implement everything I have learned. How I can use those knowledge to serve this team. We get something that is not uninnovative. One thing I want to be clear. When I say that the research person in innovation, they're the one who probably first designed the algorithms. But someone needs to implement the algorithms, otherwise they will be just in papers. So taking things from papers to the product that we will use or the consumers will use, that's where the people with a master's degree in engineering can contribute the most. I hope that helps.
It does. And I think, Bashima, I have to ask you a question that we get all the time from students. And in fact, it's one of the first questions that we actually have in the Q&A box also is, how do you, especially as an international student, and I think, your perspective here would be even more valuable. As an international student, we understand it's a huge investment to sort of consider studying abroad. and you're really looking to make sure that you're maximizing that return on investment, right? You want to make sure that if you're taking an education loan, for instance, that whatever degree it is, whatever you're choosing to study at graduate school is setting you up for success, helping you get a top job, getting you, a high-paying job so that you can either pay back those education loans or you're really moving up in your career, right? And I really would like to understand from you, what would you tell a student? And I'm going to address, some of the questions that are coming in specifically in the Q&A box around this after this, but I would just want to understand from you, generally, as a student thinks about sort of what master's really to apply to, what would you say to a student to convince them to apply for a master's in engineering?
Right. So I think there's few things. The first of all, one thing the student needs to ask themselves, what they want to do their master's in, or what area do they think they can contribute the most. So it is a two-way question. The first point is, what do you want to do? Now, let's say I have a bachelor degree in computer science and engineering, right? I'm a computer engineer. Now, if I say, I want to develop a vaccine for this disease, maybe I want to do that, but I don't have the knowledge background to do it. So that's the second question. What is the knowledge I have, or what are the skills that I have that will allow me to progress well in the area I want to work in? So it's a synchronization, it's a symphony. A student need to figure it out and what they want to do. Because if they choose something, they're like, this is something that has that shows with the numbers that it has a lot of potential for money and a lot of potential for growth, but I find it really boring. They will find it really boring after a few years, because we are choosing a field, we are choosing our career. It's not just a 1-year study or 2-year study. Getting whatever degree they're doing is a long-term investment. So the investment of time and money both goes towards what we're going to do in the future. And for someone who is international, it's also important because we often come leaving our friends and family to the other side of the world. So that's also a big thing for us to consider. So I think the first thing we need, the students, as a student, at least I ask myself is what I want to do, what field of computer engineering I'm interested in, what subfield, just not, it cannot be vague, like, I want to do computer engineering, because computer engineering is a broad field. Electrical and computer engineering has a lot of different sections. So to first understand from the experience in the bachelor degree, where this 4-year experience as a bachelor comes in, that what are the topics I have taken and what are the one I talks to me. And then understand what skills have I have gained or I want to gain to get the jobs that will allow me to have a successful career. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, that's exactly something that we like to stress as well, right? Why are you deciding on a specific program at a specific university? Is it the right program for you? Is it meeting your personal and professional needs and goals and ambitions? And I think that is really the most important question at the heart of it. As you're deciding where to apply, how do you really ensure that your degree pays off in terms of ROI? You make sure that it's the program that really is tailored to your specific needs. Now, I have a question that's come in the Q&A box. And again, these are slightly specific questions, but I'm going to take them to you, Bashima, if that's okay. One person asks, I'm an aerospace engineering graduate. I've been working as a business analyst for the past year. I want to know if a master's in engineering will help me pave the path for a product manager or related responsibility roles in my career growth. Or should I choose between an MBA or a master's in engineering management, for instance?
Well, that's a great question. So it depends. Do you want to work as a technical program manager, the TPM, or a program manager as a PM? Because the roles are different. If you're working with a technical program manager in a big company, you will essentially work with the scientists and the engineers to develop the algorithms, develop the product. If you're working as a program manager, you are going to work with the business people to push that product to launch, to push that product and make the plans of how this product should be, when it should be out, what features should go in there at that point, not from a technical perspective, but for the consumer and the business perspective. So that's where this decision comes in, that do you think you have enough experience and to be a TPM, where your most important part will be working in symphony or managing a group of scientists and scientists and engineers. On the other hand, if you're working with a program manager or working as a program manager, you will deal more with the business people. So depending on which of this program manager role you want to take on, you need to decide what is the next best degree for you.
Yeah, and I have to ask you, Bashima, also, there's a lot of questions that come in, in addition to sort of figuring out between a master's in engineering versus other sort of degrees like that, whether it was in engineering management or an MBA and other programs, but also within engineering, right? Within a master's of engineering, an MS versus an MEng. And I know that ECE also has both options available at WPI. Could you talk to us a little bit about the nuances of each of those and, maybe who's better suited to which degree?
So, in my opinion, masters in engineering are focused on those people who wants to stay. So, for example, an engineer position can be of two parts. Let's say in a software company, let's say in Google. I'm just giving an example. You can be a research engineer, where your role is to work with the scientists to get the products done. Or you can be a software developer, software engineer, where your role your most important role is to take the existing products, maintaining and upgrade them to the new features. So depending on which one you want to go, MS degree provides a little bit more depth toward the science. So many people use it as a path towards understanding whether they want to do a PhD or not. Is that the goal they want to pursue or not? Or going into more research, I won't say research position, but research focused positions. Compared to a master's in engineering, is tailored towards shaping you to be a better engineer in the real world, where you have more experience, more expertise, and more knowledge on finding the nuances of where the gap is in the engine and the product, where the gap is which you can fill with your knowledge. So I think that's the very very tiny difference between these two. And they can
tiny but mighty in terms of what it is that you're looking to do in your career, in your sort of, like you said, this is not just here's something I'd like to study for a year or two. It's about this is what I'd like my career to look like going forward once I graduate.
Right.
And at this point, I'd love to bring Danny in. I think a lot of people sort of wonder, okay, great. I think I've thought about, what degree I'd like to sort of choose. And if someone isn't indeed looking at sort of a master's in engineering, what is it about WPI, in your opinion, that would make a student really look at it and consider it very seriously, especially for engineering? What are the things that stand out about WPI?
Thank you so much, Priyanka. It's an excellent question. And from my perspective, I think WPI is an incredibly strong academic institution. And really, that's where I wanted to start. That might be the first thing that I like to point to, is that our physical resources, our laboratories are excellent. And we have some of the most highly qualified faculty in their fields that will be doing the instructing and the teaching. So I have to say, first and foremost, our faculty and our resources, our laboratories and facilities are extraordinary. And those are both very, very exciting for most prospective students. The other thing that I would like to point to is the huge advantage of our physical location in Worcester, Massachusetts. We are located about an hour from the city of Boston, which is this incredible hub of technology, of research, of science, of engineering. And I think this is an incredible advantage for our students, particularly as they get closer to graduation. We have excellent opportunities for internships, for our own research. We have close proximity to companies and industry that know us, that know our graduates. And I think being located just an hour from the city of Boston is a tremendous advantage and makes us very, very attractive for prospective students. Strong faculty, excellent academics, and close proximity to related fields and industries are some of the reasons why I think students are very excited about coming to WPI.
Yeah, and just to sort of ask you a little bit more on the WPI advantage, there's a lot of talk around sort of how the project-based learning is really one of the big draws at WPI. Could you tell our students a little bit about that and sort of what are the advantages of doing a degree that emphasizes research and sort of real-world practical training? Does it really help students, and especially WPI graduates, maybe stand out for employers?
I love that question so much, and I'm certainly going to encourage my wonderful colleagues from WPI to answer this as well. What happens at WPI is students not only get the knowledge, but they know how to apply that knowledge and those skills into real-world settings. What that means is, upon graduation, they are some of the most qualified and prepared students to enter into these fields. This is in large part because of the problem-based learning focus and the work that is done in collaboration with some of the faculty and staff. Our students are incredibly prepared, and we have the highest level of confidence that after a WPI experience and a WPI education, that they'll be ready to go into the workforce, into industry, into careers, or even into PhD programs, and be ready to succeed at the highest level in those areas as well.
Yeah, Leslie, Bashima, please feel free to jump in. Any thoughts that you have on the advantage?
Absolutely. What I've seen in my events that I've recruited before for major companies is that a lot of these major companies that we interact with have shared countless times how they sought out WPI students because of not only their academics, but the experience that they're getting, opportunities at the get-go when they graduate. So as they graduate, these students are coming out well prepared with experience, and not only in the content that their education is, but also the skill sets that they're learning throughout their academics. So they're coming with well knowledge of how to interact, how to collaborate, how to do research, well experienced with team building as well, which is set them apart.
All right, and in fact, we actually have some questions coming in from our audience on social media as well. And maybe, Bashima, I can take this to you. Akil wants to know, could you tell us anything about VLSI, the very large-scale integration? Are there any research labs dedicated to this at WPI?
There is. If you look at the WPI EC department, there are faculties who work in VLSI. We have a big lab who works on hardware security. That's a lab that uses them. And if you look into the other fields like healthcare and quality of learning, smart connected world or machine learning, all of these have some portion that works on integrated circuit, VLSI. For example, Professor Guler worked on integrated circuit and systems. If you look at imaging and sensing, Professor Ludwig works on that. I won't say that there is a lab that's exactly called the VLSI lab, but we have labs that uses them. The security lab, which is called the Vernon lab, definitely has VLSI integrated with them because they work on hardware security. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I think the next question I'm going to take to Danny. Money asks, what are the career opportunities after the completion of a master's from a WPI? Could you share some insights into what I could pursue? Could I pursue research, or are there any specific roles if I choose mechanical engineering? It's a very specific question.
I suspected that we may get some questions about outcomes and what students do after they graduate from WPI. So I did a little bit of research in preparation of this question, perhaps coming up during our conversation. And I'm looking at some of our outcomes. For students that graduate WPI with a master's degree, specifically in ECE or mechanical engineering, I actually have data about all of our graduate degrees, but specifically on these two, 81.6 graduates from the class of 2022 alone entered employment. They found work and entered industry right after graduation. Some of the companies that they worked for, the largest one was Pratt & Whitney. We also had a number of students secure positions at Raytheon, BAE Systems, and General Dynamics. We also had some students in GE analog devices. They go, and also Naval Undersea Center. They go into a number of different fields. We also had some students, just about 14% of our master's degree students continue their education into PhD programs. What I thought was really interesting about the PhD programs is where they elected to go. Almost all of the master's degree students chose to stay at WPI to complete their education and earn a PhD. I think that's incredibly telling about the positive academic experience and how much they enjoyed it. We did have some students go into other institutions as well to pursue a PhD, including Georgia Institute of Technology. Georgia Tech is another wonderful institution. Babson College, Tufts University, UCLA, University of San Diego. So it is a national group. The majority of our master's degree students will enter the workforce and secure employment after graduation. A number will continue, about 14% will continue on to graduate school, and the overwhelming majority of those PhD students will be at WPI.
Great. Thanks for sharing. I think in WPI tradition, you've really brought the data to back all of your answers. So we appreciate that. A couple of questions coming in the Q&A box. Subhan asks, currently I'm pursuing electrical engineering. Can I change my branch to data science? I don't have any background of data science. So are there opportunities to sort of switch between engineering fields? Would you recommend that? I'll take it to anyone in the panel who would like to answer Subhan's question.
This student already completed their bachelor's, or is this a master's that they're already seeking in one degree and want to change? That's my question before I can answer.
I believe this would be a bachelor's in electrical, and they're looking to potentially look for a more data-focused master's.
What I've noticed in some of the students that I interact with is that oftentimes students tend to favor going into a different discipline for their master's, which I think it's value to them, because not only do they come with expert in one content area, they develop expertise on another one, which makes them even more versatile in not only in their skill sets and growth and professional goals that they may have, but also as an employee. Many employers like seeing that students come in with many different skill sets and academic backgrounds in order for them to be successful in their in employment. I also wanted to just add a little bit that once a student becomes a master seeking students at WPI and is accepted, they can start working with the Career Development Center immediately. So they don't have to wait until they finish their program to start networking in terms of employment. They can start that right away, which they offer a wide variety of different opportunities through helping them with putting together their cover letters, helping them practice mock interviews, internship opportunities, co-op opportunities. And WPI has a really strong networking with a lot of these major companies that Dan has already mentioned, that they know what to expect when they're already starting to see WPI students come through. So they know that we're producing, or students are coming up with very high skill sets and areas of research that is well suited.
Thanks so much for talking about that, because I think a lot of concerns that international students and especially Indian students have around some of these, sort of figuring out where to go to school, what program to choose, is exactly something like that. What kind of career services support will I get, especially as an international student? And Leslie, you spoke a little bit about the sort of things like, figuring out mock interviews to something as basic as helping you work on your resume. Could you talk to us a little bit about your experience working with international students, or the experience that international students may have as they navigate internships, the job search? I think especially because in India, there's a lot of focus on placement within universities, right? So a lot of universities will really handhold their graduates to the job search, through the job search. And I think in the United States, one of the biggest differences, a real focus on, networking, outreach, sort of cold outreach, LinkedIn requests, meeting people at career fairs, striking up those conversations, branding yourself, personal branding as an employee, which I think sometimes can be a bit alienating for some international students. Could you talk to us a little bit about that process as an international student? How does WPI support students, for instance?
Very good, sure. So one of the first things I want to mention, WPI is a very diverse university. So we have a large population of our students are international students. So not only do we cater to them, we provide a lot of supports for them. There's a lot of different diverse groups as well, clubs and committees for our students to help feel them welcome and, build that sense of community within the community. But in addition, WPI also has their own international house that works closely with students as they're seeking to move forward at WPI, help them with the process of obtaining a I-20 student visa. And then even after, like I said, once you're an admitted student, you can start working with the Career Development Center immediately to help you start networking, building those relationships. They offer a wide variety of different career fairs, opportunities, and opportunities to get their students out there, even if it's just practicing, like I just mentioned, interviews, in order to help them be successful as they graduate and even beyond. So even once a student graduates WPI, they can still come back to those career, development center to help them move forward with those job opportunities.
Yeah, great. And I just want to remind everyone the Q&A box is open if you've got questions. The idea is to get any and all of them answered. If you're wondering about, which masters in engineering should be, you should be looking for, if you've got questions around sort of how to stand out as an applicant, applying to the United States. If you've got questions around WPI, please drop them in the Q&A box. We're going to try and take as many of them as we can over the next sort of half an hour that we have left with our panel. And in fact, I'm going to take some of our questions that are coming in on Instagram to our panel. One person asks, could you talk to us a little bit about the research or internship and part-time opportunities specifically for engineering students at WPI? I'm going to leave that to the panel, whoever would like to answer that. Research, internship, and part-time opportunities. And I'm assuming this means part-time job opportunities.
This is an excellent question, and perhaps my colleagues may be able to speak a little bit more specifically about some of the research opportunities, because that tends to fall under the academic side of the house. But I can share with you that we are spending an awful lot of time and being very intentional with making sure we can provide on-campus part-time employment opportunities for our students. This may happen at the academic or department level. For example, many of the programs in our business school will hire graduate student workers to help out in a number of different capacities. Sometimes there may be more student affairs type opportunities, but there can be opportunities for international students to work part-time on campus while they are continuing their education. So certainly we're looking at making sure we can provide ample work opportunities for our students. And I am very, very confident that my colleagues may be able to share a little bit more about some of the research that's happening and the research that students are involved in.
So I can take this question. So from my experience, what I've seen is a lot of master's students can also do masters with PCs. And most of them work with one or more faculty in a research lab for working with research projects. These research projects often result in academic papers, which not only increases the value of their CV, but also allows them to have a more concrete expertise to show in job interviews, both in academia and industry, because this has a proven, peer-reviewed validation of the work and the skill set they have, which is beside the courses they have taken or their grades. So that always adds additional value. Either you're applying to grad school or you're applying for a position in a company. And I have seen a lot of master students taking industry opportunities in a lot of big and small companies, ranging from Raytheon to Amazon to Google to Tesla during their masters, by showing their expertise in certain areas that they're valued by this specific team they're applying to. So the key of getting any type of internship is to identify which team, not the company, which team of the company is looking for the skill set what you have acquired during your masters. So that's the case, not just looking at the companies, looking at the teams. And that's a huge thing that people often misses when they randomly keeps on applying for internship positions.
Yeah, and maybe Bashima, could you tell us a little bit about, especially as an international student, that experience of doing some of this kind of research? What kind of tips would you have for a student that might be in that position? How would they even go about looking up these teams and figuring out, am I a good fit there? Am I really going to be learning and be able to contribute as well, to this team right from day one?
Right. So there's a few things. The first thing is be very mindful and careful about what the job advertisement says, because most of the job description has these nuances writing here and there. Like they talk about exactly what type of skill set to look for. Sometimes it's not that on the face, it's a little bit hidden. So spend some time on that. The second thing is most of them always mention which team is looking for. And it's often good to reach out with an email to one of the members of the team. Most of the companies have their team members' profile online with email address. It takes some time, and the email return rate is only 10%. But if you email to 10 people, all you need is one response. You don't need 10 responses. So even though it seemed like a tedious task to email people and getting only 10% response, but trust me, this 10% response is actually what you need. You only need one response. You don't need 50 of them.
Exactly. I think often people sort of get lost in a numbers game, but you said it. You just need that one person to sort of take a chance on you, and it can really change things around. And I think a lot of times some of these internships really get converted into full-time positions as well. So a lot of, great opportunities and possibilities really exist. In fact, we've got one more question coming in on our Instagram. Let me quickly pull that up for you. One person asked, and maybe Bashima, I'm going to take this to you as well. And if Danny and Leslie would like to jump in, feel free. This is a student who's thinking about a trendy degree, as we called it. They're confused between a master's in computer science and a master's of engineering, electrical and computer engineering. So how can they really make that decision? What are the key points or scope for an ECE degree in the future is the question.
So it's a tough question because the boundaries between these two departments is a little bit not so solid. It's a good way to say it. It depends on what you want to work on. It's totally depends on what you want to work on. If you are envisioning yourself to go and work on, let's say, tiny embedded system, doing machine learning in embedded system, let's say, an ECE degree will teach you more of those things. Now, let's say you want to work on developing operating systems. That's where you want to probably look for a computer science degree. But one thing what I've found over my journey and looking at a bunch of students, friends, colleagues getting jobs is if you look at the job description for this type of positions, they say a master's in computer science, electrical computer engineering, information science, data science. So it's not the name of the degree you achieved, it's the skill set you achieved. So even if you have a computer science degree, but you have worked with a lot of embedded systems and you have worked with FPGAs, they're not gonna say, oh, you have a computer science degree, not an ECE degree, you won't fit in here. Similarly, if you have worked with schedulers, you have worked with real-time systems and operating systems compared to that, and you are going to the OS team, let's say you are going to work in, Ubuntu team, let's say, to make the OS. And they see that you have the skill set to do it, they're not going to say, oh, you have an ECE degree, not a CS degree, so you are not fit for the position. It's not the degree, it's the skill set. And I'll give an example about myself. So I have a bachelor degree in computer science and engineering. I have a PhD in computer science. I'm a faculty in the electrical and computer engineering department. So I think that proves what I'm just saying. It's not the name of the degree. It's what you can do. I hope that.
Yeah, great answer. And I think, that's exactly why what we were talking a little bit about earlier is it really is on you as a student thinking about your master's to do that deep work, that research, look into course curriculum, figure out, really what are the nuances, of each program that you're considering. and attend events like this where you can ask some of those questions and get that, get those kinds of answers. In fact, one more question coming in around this theme, if I'm going to bring it to you. A student asks in the Q&A box, I've completed my degree in electronics and communication engineering, and I'm working as a system engineer, now looking for a master's program. I'm confused about what field to do my master's in. I want to stay in technology, but don't want to go to core and don't want to go into deep coding. I don't want to stay into what I'm working on either. What options do I have for my master's?
That's a complicated question. So you have explored some of the fields. So you don't enjoy coding. So any courses or degree requirement that has a lot of coding courses is not the path you should choose. You can look into the system engineering. We have a master's in system engineering, WPI. But if you feel like, okay, I looked into system engineering and I don't like system engineering, first identify why you don't like system engineering, or what don't you like about system engineering? Is it because you don't have enough experience in system engineering, because you moved from a communication and electrical engineering and jump to system engineering without having the background of that? Is that what you need actually to enjoy the job you're doing now? Then that's the answer. But if you feel like, okay, I feel like I am a person who throughout my journey, since my undergrad, like that I like working with circuits. So that's probably where your electrical engineering experience may come into play. And probably that is the ECE engineering might be the answer for you. So you need to ask your question that, okay, I have taken, let's say, 50 courses and I've done 10 more projects, so 60 experience. Which of those 60 experience are the one I enjoyed the most? And which of those 60 experience together has a job perspective? And then choose the master's that tells you to take or gives you the opportunity. So for example, if you enjoyed power courses during your undergrad, even though you're not pursuing a career in power now, but you enjoyed it and that's what your passion is, you can definitely do a master's in power system engineering that we offer. So that is how you need to ask yourself to see, should I be an ECE master's, a system engineering master, or a power system master's?
Got it. Great answer. Okay. I want to spend sort of the next 15 minutes or so, the last quarter of this hour of this event, talking a little bit more in detail about WPI. I think one of the fun things that our team, when they were looking into WPI, found and shared with us was that the sports teams at WPI are called the WPI Engineers. Could you tell us a little bit about that? Clearly, engineering and the love for engineering runs deep at WPI.
I happen to be a very big fan of college athletics. I was not a college athlete myself, but I very much enjoy it. And I think it adds a tremendous community aspect to our great institution. Our school colors are crimson and gray. We have a very, very large number of athletic teams. And yes, they are the engineers, which is certainly a recognition to our STEM certification and some of our great programs. I will say, however, our mascot, and I may get a little bit closer to the camera, is actually a goat. We are the WPI goats, and that's because a number of years ago, several decades ago, an international student who was on campus actually had a pet goat. So you will see statues of goats. You will see faculty and staff with the pin. It's kind of a unique aspect, but if you were to look at our athletic logo, it's actually something that I think is not only very interesting, but very, very cool. And I love the fact that we have such an academic mascot, an academic nickname for our teams, the WPI Engineers with the mascot of a goat.
Okay, I'm going to ask you one more question about that. We also were looking into the fight song. The fight song, too, is quite academically inclined. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
You will not want to hear me sing any song, our fight song or otherwise. So what I may try to do is very quickly copy and paste the lyrics. I'd like to put this in the chat so that everybody can see it, because I promise you, nobody wants to hear me sing I Cannot Carry a Tune. So I'll get those lyrics. I'll put it in the chat so you can see it.
All right, thanks. Leslie, could you tell us a little bit about sort of, the kinds of international students specifically that you really see succeeding at WPI? Is there a particular kind of student that comes in ready to take things on, right from the get-go, right from the moment they land on campus? And what kind of student could that be?
What I've seen is that a student who comes in who is like a sponge, who's ready to absorb everything. And when I mean everything, not just academics, but willing to be open to build communities, like I said before, within the communities, whether it's social groups, as athletics, going outside of WPI, learning about Worcester itself in the city, being willing to new opportunity is a student that is going to thrive, that we notice thrives the most, not only through social events because they're well involved, not only in the city, in the community, WPI, all the opportunities that the WPI offers, networking, being social is a student that we see with most growth and most prosperity. Like I mentioned before, WPI is a well-diverse community. A large population of our students are international, a lot of Indians from Asia, from all parts of around the world. So as a student that comes to WPI, not only are they going to be exposed to many different opportunities, but they get the opportunity to collaborate with students from all parts of the world. So that brings them to a great advantage as they're, getting themselves ready academically and ready for the workforce.
Yeah, that makes sense. And in fact, we have a couple more questions coming in the Q&A box. I do want to remind folks we've got just about 10 minutes left with this amazing panel. So any questions you have around the engineering programs, around WPI, now is the time to ask those questions. And in case you're interested in the fight song that Danny and I were just talking about, the lyrics to that are in the chat box as well. Some of you may recognize what it is a reference to. Okay, one more question coming in. Bashima, maybe I can take this to you. There's a lot of questions around embedded systems. And Gopi asks, could you give some insights about the embedded systems hardware course at your university, followed by placement opportunities and average compensation? I'm not sure if you'll have all the details on that, but we do in fact have one more question around embedded systems coming in on Instagram as well. And Ananya asks, could you tell us about embedded system research available at WPI? Have there been any papers, any interesting research around that?
Sure. So I'm one of the faculties who works with the embedded system in the EC department. So I can definitely answer your question here. First of all, we do have a lot of existing courses and new courses on this topic. For example, this year I'm teaching a new course called On-Device Deep Learning, where we learn on how to do artificial intelligence in this tiny embedded system. We have courses called Real-Time Embedded System. We have courses that are focusing on the digital signal processing, the computer architecture of the systems. We also look into the VLSI, the signal and systems that are already existing courses. You can also take into courses like the digital communication and antennas. We also have distributed the VLSI design is the EC 566, which is an established course we teach. We have advanced system architecture, embedded core architecture and core-based design, digital system testing, methodology for system level design and modeling and synthesis and digital system for Verilog and VHLD. So these are some of the courses, not all, that is already there in the curriculum. So if you look at the ECE course catalog, you will find most of the existing courses. And we also have new experimental courses going on, like the one I'm teaching. We are also having machine learning for engineering courses, which is focusing on the basics of machine learning, not from the perspective of how the algorithm, the gradients are working, but also in the perspective of how to deploy, how to train, and how to fine-tune this model in real-world engineering problems. Beside that, for research opportunities, if you look at the research section and the research labs in the EC department, so my lab is called Bringing Awareness through System for Humans, which is embedded system and mobile computing lab, where we work on using sensing and computing on device for using tiny systems, so we can develop more infrastructure, tiny infrastructure of Internet of Things that will allow us humans to take more educated decision by understanding our perspective. We also have the wireless lab, which focuses on the wireless part of the system, which looks into how you can develop the wireless technology for IoTs. Professor Tang runs the Computational Intelligence and Learning Systems Lab, which focus on AI and AI security and cyber physical systems, including autonomous vehicles. You can also look into Professor Huang's lab, which is the Embedded Computing Lab, which is computer vision and deep learning for hardware architecture design for autonomous robotics and embedded system. There is also the Vision Intelligence and System Labs by Professor Chang, which looks into the computer vision and artificial intelligence, as well as the hardware design and engineering needed for this computer vision society. So these are just some of the example labs that already exist and are currently running with PhD and master's students.
Amazing. Thank you so much for those insights. A couple more questions coming in that I'll be taking to Danny and Leslie. But before I do that, I do have one quick question to ask you. We've had some programming that we've done around women in STEM specifically. And as I was looking through your profile, I noticed that you're a faculty advisor to WPI Women in Electrical and Computer Engineering. Could you tell us a little bit about what that is and sort of, do you have any sort of words of encouragement for women that are considering doing an ECE degree?
Definitely. So it is often, we often see a less number of female students in engineering in general. ECE is one of the departments which is currently trying to grow the population, the diversity in the department itself. So we see is a student-run club that we have, which is run by mostly our juniors and seniors. It includes the graduate students and undergraduate students. And the goal of here is not just to do outreach to get more female students into the department, but also to have a community for them. So there are several tasks we do. For example, I think last week we had resume review with, I believe it was with analog devices, where we had invited people from analog devices come and look at the CVs or resumes for students that we have to help them. What are the things they need or they're looking for in their resumes, how they can improve their resume for getting a job in such companies. We often invite people from different companies, academia, to give talks, alumni to share their experience. But this is also a safe space for the community to talk about their problems, to share their struggles. So we also host events like Morning Bagels, which invites the whole department. We have painting nights with the members of the club. They go together and they buy canvases, they paint, and they hang it up all around the walls in the nice room we have in the first floor of the EC building, which is Atwater Kent Laboratory at WPI. So I know the robotics engineering also has their own club. The computer science has the Weeks, which is their own club for women in computer science. I think the robotics one called WIRE, Women in Robotics Engineering. So these clubs then work together. So these clubs, again, combine together to host all bigger events where they have all of the different engineering female students together to share their experience, to help each other review each other profiles, each other work. They study together before the exam. They have study nights. So this is not a support system, and also a system to encourage the students to see what are the things they can improve, what are the things they're not like unaware of that they can do and they can easily do to have a much more successful career.
Thank you so much for sharing. I think, so much around, a decision of where to go to school also involves community. What kind of community will I find once I'm there? And I think, especially for international students, for women in STEM, to find a supportive community that's really got your back, just to know that, I think that can be really, really reassuring. I have one question coming in for Danny. One person asked in the Q&A box, during the selection process, what are usually the criteria that WPI looks for in applications? Is it all about the CGPA, or do projects and research papers matter? Or is there anything else? So, what kind of student are you looking at? Is WPI looking at when they're looking through applications?
An excellent question. And Leslie may be able to provide some very valuable insights on this as well. The admission process and the selection process at WPI is very holistic. So yes, we certainly look at your academic background to make sure students have the foundation necessary to be successful in our rigorous master's and PhD programs. We certainly will look at the courses you've taken, in particular math and science sequence, and then also how well a student has performed in those courses. One question we get from many international students, and students particularly from India, is about their bachelor's degree in India, which is 3 years. That is okay. That will meet our minimum criteria. And then we'll look to see how well you did in your bachelor's degree program. So I think that's an important thing that we wanted to share. I did mention, though, that it is holistic. Part of this is we are a strong community with a number of students with different interests. And yes, we want good students, but we also want students that are able to come to WPI and share their unique talents, gifts, and interests with us. So whenever I'm speaking with a student, I always encourage them to enjoy this application process. It's a wonderful opportunity for a student to reflect on their accomplishments, what they've done. We've talked a lot about discerning what your interests are, both academic interests and also career interests. And through this admission and application process, I very much encourage students to take a look at our website, to see our faculty profiles, to see what their background is, what their research interests are, and that will help determine if WPI is going to be the right fit, and also which program and which department and which degree at WPI is going to be the best fit. Certainly, I'm going to encourage my wonderful colleagues, Leslie and Bashima, to weigh in. But the admission process at WPI, strong academics, it is a holistic review process. And make sure you enjoy this, because ultimately, if you enjoy it, you'll have the best outcomes that you're looking for.
I'd just like to add, very similar to what Danny just said. In general, what the reviewing faculty, what they look for are candidates who have a undergrad in engineering, preferably in a relatable field, with a preferred GPA of 3.0 or better. But again, with the holistic approach, they do look at your letters of recommendation. They look closely at your statement of purpose, reasons for wanting to attend WPI. What are your professional goals? How is attending WPI going to help you move professionally? Your resume, if you have years of experience in the field, that also comes into play. So there's a lot of different factors. So we strongly encourage students to reach out to us. And if they fall short from what the preferred academic background is, just to have a conversation with us, because we may have some suggestions on how to put a strong application together. So please give us a call, and we can always help you out. For every scenario is slightly different. So don't get discouraged if you don't meet that criteria, because we might be able to give you some suggestions on how to put together a strong application.
Thank you so much for saying that, Leslie. I think oftentimes, as you're a student sort of applying, it's all such an intimidating process. You almost kind of forget that there's a real human being, reviewing your application, looking at your essays, your SOP, your letter of recommendation. And sometimes you really feel, I think, as a student, am I just being reduced to a number? My GRE, GMAT, my GPA. And I think it's so reassuring to hear, from a school that, no, we're really looking at you as a candidate beyond your test scores. What are you bringing to the community, to the college? So I think that's really reassuring to hear. And I think, great advice for anyone that is considering applying to WPI. Definitely reach out, speak to the folks there. Leslie, could you share maybe where is the best way for a student to reach out to you or the team? Should they email or what should they do?
Have a team that works at the graduate admissions that, we all have different programs that we oversee. But the easiest way to get in contact with us is just to email the grad admissions, and it's grad@wpi.edu. And you send your email there, and it will be funneled to the correct person who oversees your program, and we'll get in contact with the student right away.
Fantastic. We're in the last 60 seconds of our event. I'm going to do a quick, rapid question answer with all three of you. One highly underrated thing about Worcester or Boston that you think a student from India should definitely not miss out on. And the answer cannot be Dunkin' Donuts. Leslie, I'm going to throw it to you first.
Let's see. Oh my goodness. You caught me off guard here. Oh my goodness. Highly rated. Dunkin' Donuts is such a great response. It's like every corner there's one.
I mean, Boston runs on Dunkin', so
know,
who are we to say no?
Oh my goodness.
All right, we'll let that slide. If you have any other answer, we're happy to come back to you. Danny, can I throw it to you? One thing about, Worcester, Boston, an international student who's really maybe never been to the area, may not know too much about it. What can they really look out for? What should they really be doing?
I grew up almost in the exact midpoint between Worcester and Boston. You can probably tell my accent is slightly different than my colleagues. What I love about this region and about this area is that a student will have the opportunity to experience not just incredible academics, but all 4 seasons. We do have snow in the winter. We are very close proximity to beautiful Atlantic Ocean beaches. For people that like outdoor activity, mountain biking, hiking, skiing, very easy access. Within a 1-hour drive, you have access to 4 seasons, different climates, different topography. It is a wonderful place to be a student and a beautiful, beautiful part of the United States to live.
Okay, I have to second you on that. The New England fall, 100% worth choosing Worcester for. Bashima, I'm going to throw it to you next. In your experience, especially as a student from, who came in from Bangladesh and now is at WPI, what's one thing that a student should not miss out on?
So Boston and the Worcester area has a really good food diversity. It's that is something that is I really enjoy. To be honest, they have a really good food diversity. There are a lot of different cultures in here. There's a very nice mix of culture. There's a very big temple in Ashland, which is in the middle point of Worcester and Boston. There are mosques around. There are other cultural communities around. I know people who play cricket. That is a very popular game back in South Asia. On a weekly basis, there are soccer games on a weekly basis going on in Shrewsbury. So there are a lot of people and culture that is here. So you're not going to leave all your experience, cultures, and fun when you come here. I think that's very important for any international student.
Absolutely agreed. Thank you so much. All three of you for spending time speaking to the GradRight community this Wednesday morning for you. We really appreciate all the insights you brought. Bashima, thank you so much for being such a great sport. Being on the hot seat and taking all the questions so sportingly. We really appreciate all of the insights that you brought to us. Danny, Leslie, thank you so much, for all of the insights into WPI, Worcester, Boston, all of that and above. And of course, Danny, I think we'll have to leave your singing to the next event that we have. Hopefully that doesn't scare you away from GradRight events. But genuinely, thank you all so much for spending the last 1 hour with us. We really appreciate your time, your insights, and folks that are still on the call. Thank you so much for your questions. I hope we were able to answer as many of them as we could. I know that there were a few that we couldn't get to, but so in case you still have some questions around Masters of Engineering, around WPI, if you're considering applying for 2024, do write into us. We're available at Instagram, on LinkedIn, at GradRight. That's GradRight. And someone will definitely be in touch with you. On that note, have a wonderful evening here in India. And for all of our guests joining us from the United States, have a wonderful Wednesday. Bye-bye.
Bye.